You checked your glucose 2 hours after lunch today. You had a salad, greens, some vegetables, a little dressing. You were being careful. You made the right choice. And the number on the monitor was higher than it should have been for someone who just ate a salad. You stared at it for a moment, genuinely confused. You've been doing this for months. Eating well, choosing the healthy option every time. And the numbers keep doing things that don't match the effort. Today, I'm going to count down 5 specific salads, from number 5 to number 1, that are quietly spiking blood sugar in people who believe they are making the safest possible choice. Number 1 is the one that surprises everyone, every single time. It has been on family tables for generations, and for anyone managing blood sugar, it may be the most deceptive food in the entire summer cookout spread. Stay with me through all 5. Let me describe something before we go any further, and I want you to be honest with yourself about whether you recognize it. You made a decision sometime in the last year or two. Maybe your doctor mentioned pre-diabetes. Maybe your A1C came back in a range that made you take things seriously. Maybe you simply decided, after years of managing this imperfectly, that you were going to do it right. You started paying attention. You cut the obvious things, the soda, the dessert, the bread basket at dinner. You started making salads, real ones, not bags of iceberg with ranch dressing, but actual, deliberate, considered salads. You read about glycemic index. You chose carefully. You brought your lunch from home rather than taking your chances at a restaurant. And still not always, not every time, but with maddening inconsistency, the numbers did not match the effort. You'd eat what you were certain was a completely safe meal, and 90 minutes later, your monitor would show something that made no sense. Not the soda, not the cake, the salad you brought from home in a container with a tight lid. You probably ran through the mental checklist. Was it the dressing? Did you eat too much? Was it stress? Was it something you ate the night before? You found explanations and discarded them, and the confusion quietly accumulated into a low-grade background frustration, the specific frustration of someone who is trying hard and not getting the results that the effort should produce. The reason you have not been able to solve this is not that you are doing something wrong. The reason is that the information you were given, eat salads, make healthier choices, avoid sugar, was incomplete in a very specific way. It did not tell you what happens inside the body when certain ingredients break down. It did not explain why 2 meals that look equally healthy can produce completely different blood sugar responses. It did not distinguish between foods that behave like vegetables in your metabolism and foods that behave like white bread once digestion begins. That is the gap I want to close today. You are not imagining it, and it is not your fault. Here is something I want you to hold as a question through this entire video, and I think the answer will genuinely surprise you. The number 1 salad on today's list, the food that most consistently produces unexpected blood sugar spikes in people who believe they are making a safe choice, does not taste particularly sweet. It does not look like a high-sugar food. It has been eaten at family cookouts and church potlucks and summer picnics for generations. Its name contains the word that most people with diabetes have been told to eat more of. And in glycemic index studies, it consistently produces a blood sugar response similar to, and in some measurements actually higher than, several types of candy. What is it? The answer is coming, but to understand why, you need to understand the mechanism that connects all 5 salads on today's list. And that mechanism starts not with sugar, but with starch. My name is Dr. Jane. I have spent more than 30 years working with patients managing metabolic health, blood sugar, and the long-term consequences of poorly understood dietary patterns. And in that time, the most consistent gap I have seen between what patients think is happening and what is actually happening in their bodies involves this word, starch. People managing blood sugar learn to look for sugar. They read ingredient labels for sugar. They avoid desserts and sodas and sweetened beverages. They become very good at identifying obvious sources of glucose. What they are almost never walked through is that starch, ordinary, flavorless, unsweetened starch found in potatoes, pasta, bread, and other familiar foods, is simply glucose in disguise. Long chains of glucose molecules connected together, which the digestive system breaks apart within minutes of contact. Starch does not taste sweet. It does not register as a threat the way a piece of cake does. But once it enters the digestive system, the outcome from a blood sugar standpoint is identical. Glucose floods the bloodstream. The pancreas responds with insulin. If the flood arrives too fast, if the starch is the kind that breaks down rapidly, the insulin response overshoots, blood sugar drops after the spike, and within 2 hours you feel the familiar combination of fatigue, hunger, and mental fog that tells you something metabolic just happened. That is the mechanism behind every salad on today's list. Not hidden sugar, but starch that was never recognized as starch because it was sitting inside something called a salad. By the time we reach number 1, you will understand not just which salads cause the problem, but exactly why they cause it and what to eat instead. That genuinely supports blood sugar stability. Before we dive in, if you're finding this useful, take 2 seconds right now, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a video, and give this a thumbs up. It genuinely helps more people like you find this content. And drop a comment below. Tell me what country you're watching from. I'd love to know where our community is tuning in from around the world. Hold on a second. Before we go any further, I've put something together for you. It's called the Glucose Paradox. It's a free guide on blood sugar and diabetes, and you can grab it for free through the link in the description. I'm telling you this now because I want you to finish this video with a concrete tool in your hands. To get it right away, just click the link in the description, head over to my site, and drop your email. You'll receive the guide in your inbox a few minutes later. But I don't want to take up any more of your time. Let's get back to the video. Before I give you number 5, I want to tell you about Carol. Carol was 63 years old, a retired kindergarten teacher from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She had been managing type 2 diabetes for 4 years, and she was, by every measure I could find, a conscientious and dedicated patient. She kept a food diary. She attended every follow-up appointment. She had eliminated the foods her physician identified as problems. She had started cooking at home almost exclusively, rather than eating out, specifically so she could control what went into her meals. She came to see me with her food diary in one hand and her glucose log in the other. She placed them both on the desk and said, "I need you to look at these together, because they make no sense, and I've been trying to figure this out for 6 months." I looked at them together. Her food choices were careful and deliberate. Her glucose spikes were real, consistent, and clearly connected to specific meals she had categorized as safe. One appeared repeatedly, a pasta salad she made at home with rotini, cherry tomatoes, olives, and Italian dressing. She made it on Sundays and ate it for lunch 3 or 4 days a week, because it was convenient, it tasted good, and it felt like a solid, vegetable-rich meal. When I explained what was happening with the pasta, the specific way refined wheat starch behaves in the digestive system, the speed of the glucose release, the reason her monitor read what it read 90 minutes after eating something she had genuinely believed was safe, she sat quietly for a moment. Then she said, "Nobody ever explained that pasta and bread are the same thing once they're inside you. Nobody ever told her, that is the gap I want to close for you today." Let's count down. Number 5 is fruit salad. And I want to approach this one carefully, because fruit is genuinely nutritious, and I am not here to make you afraid of it. But fruit salad, as a standalone meal for someone managing blood sugar, deserves a specific conversation that most people never have. Think about what the word salad does in this context. It signals health. It signals a sensible choice. A bowl of mixed fruit feels like the most innocent possible thing you could eat. Natural sugars, vitamins, antioxidants, fiber, and all of that is true. Fruit is nutritious. The problem is scale, and the specific way scale interacts with fruit's primary sugar. Most fruits contain a sugar called fructose. Fructose is interesting because it is not processed the same way as glucose. It goes primarily to the liver rather than directly into the bloodstream. In small amounts, this makes fructose generally well tolerated, even in people with insulin resistance. But here is what happens when a large fruit salad arrives all at once. Think of your liver as a processing facility with a limited throughput capacity. A small daily delivery of fructose from a few berries with breakfast moves through the facility cleanly, gets processed, causes no backlog. A large delivery, the kind that arrives when you eat a substantial bowl of mango, grapes, pineapple, and banana together as a meal, overwhelms the facility. The liver cannot process it all efficiently. Some of the excess fructose gets converted to fat, and this fat conversion, over time, is directly associated with the kind of fatty liver changes that worsen insulin resistance, the underlying condition that most people with type 2 diabetes are already working to manage. Beyond the fructose, the total carbohydrate load of a large fruit salad is substantial. A single medium banana contains about 27 grams of carbohydrate. Add a cup of grapes, a cup of pineapple chunks, and half a mango, and you are approaching a carbohydrate load comparable to a full plate of pasta. Spread across different fruits, eaten from a bowl with a spoon, it does not feel like that much. The number on the monitor tells a different story. Fruit works best in controlled smaller portions. A handful of berries, a few apple slices alongside protein and fat, rather than as the centerpiece of a meal. The berries and apple slices bring fiber, antioxidants, and genuine nutritional value without the volume problem. The large bowl of mixed tropical fruit brings everything that made the component fruits worth eating, but at a quantity that the metabolic system struggles to manage cleanly. That is number 5. The fix is simple: smaller portions, lower sugar varieties like berries, and always alongside protein or fat rather than as a standalone meal. Number 4 is Caesar salad. And this is the one that makes people genuinely skeptical the first time I describe it, because on the surface, Caesar salad looks like one of the most blood sugar-friendly options on any restaurant menu. Romaine lettuce, Parmesan cheese, a savory dressing. It sounds like exactly the kind of meal someone managing diabetes should be choosing. The problem is hiding in something most people treat as background noise in the bowl: croutons. Think of croutons the way I want you to think of all bread going forward, as a concentrated delivery system for refined starch. White bread, which is what the vast majority of croutons are made from, has had the fiber-rich outer layers of the grain stripped away during processing. What remains is starch that digestive enzymes can access almost immediately. There is no protective fiber slowing the breakdown. There is no protein or fat embedded in the structure to buffer the glucose release. The starch meets the enzymes and glucose enters the bloodstream fast. The specific issue with croutons in a Caesar salad is what I call the visual underestimation problem. Croutons are small. They look like garnish. They are surrounded by large voluminous leaves of romaine that take up most of the visual space in the bowl. Most people eating Caesar salad, including people who are carefully tracking their meals, significantly underestimate how many croutons they are actually consuming, because the croutons look minor relative to the total volume of the dish. But your blood sugar does not see the lettuce. It responds to the starch, and a generous restaurant serving of croutons, the kind that comes automatically at most sit-down restaurants, represents a starch load that produces a glucose response most people would associate with a small dinner roll. Not because the croutons are particularly large or particularly numerous, but because refined wheat starch is that efficient at releasing glucose quickly. Add to this the dressing issue. Many commercial Caesar dressings contain added sugar, included to balance the sharpness of the anchovy base and extend shelf life. Some restaurant versions use ingredients that add further to the carbohydrate content beyond what you would expect from a savory, creamy dressing. The solution is specific and requires minimal sacrifice. Ask for croutons on the side and use none, or use a very small amount. Request dressing on the side so you control the quantity. With those 2 adjustments, Caesar salad becomes genuinely blood sugar friendly. The romaine is excellent. The protein and fat from the cheese and dressing support satiety and slow digestion, and the overall carbohydrate load drops dramatically. Without those adjustments, it is a consistent source of unexpected spikes for people who believe they chose wisely. That is number 4. Number 3 is coleslaw. And this is the one I find most instructive to explain, because the story of coleslaw is really the story of how a genuinely excellent vegetable gets transformed into something metabolically problematic by a single element added during preparation. Cabbage is extraordinary. It is low in starch, high in fiber, rich in compounds that support liver health and digestion, broadly anti-inflammatory, and as a raw vegetable, it digests slowly in a way that is ideal for blood sugar management. If someone told you to eat more cabbage for blood sugar control, that would be entirely reasonable advice. Traditional coleslaw is not cabbage. Not functionally. Traditional coleslaw is cabbage in a dressing built around mayonnaise and sugar. The sugar is structural. It is not decorative, not optional, not a sprinkle on top. Without it, coleslaw does not taste like coleslaw. The sugar balances the vinegar, softens the flavor, and creates the specific sweet-savory profile that makes the dish what it is. In a typical home recipe, this translates to several tablespoons of sugar per batch. Commercial coleslaw, the kind from grocery store deli counters, fast food restaurants, and barbecue joints, often contains even more, with corn syrup as a common ingredient alongside or instead of sugar. Now consider how coleslaw is actually served, not in the small portion size printed on the nutrition label, in the generous scoop that gets placed on your plate alongside a sandwich or a piece of grilled chicken, because coleslaw is a side dish, and side dishes get served in side dish quantities, 2, 3, or 4 times what the label considers a serving. All of that added sugar entering your bloodstream alongside the cabbage that would have been perfectly fine on its own. Think of it like this. Take a piece of furniture made from beautiful, high-quality wood. Now submerge it in a chemical bath that changes its composition entirely. The wood is still there, but what comes out of the bath is a different object. Traditional coleslaw is cabbage that has been through the chemical bath. The nutrition of the cabbage is still partially present, but what you are metabolically consuming is substantially different from cabbage. Vinegar-based coleslaw, the kind made with a light dressing of apple cider vinegar, a small amount of olive oil, and minimal or no added sugar, is genuinely blood sugar friendly and absolutely delicious when properly seasoned. That version is worth seeking out. The traditional mayo and sugar version, in the portions in which it is typically served, is not. That is number 3. Now we are at the exact midpoint of this countdown, and I want to bring back the question from the beginning. That food, the one that does not taste sweet, that has a benign and familiar name, that appears at summer gatherings and is associated with comfort and tradition, is coming at number 1. And to understand why it behaves the way it does, you first need to understand number 2, because number 2 and number 1 are connected by the same underlying problem, the way starch behaves when it has been cooked to make it maximally accessible to digestion. That concept is the key to the most important reveal in this video. Hold it. Before I tell you about number 2, I want to tell you about Vincent. Vincent was 71 years old, a retired postal worker from Columbus, Ohio. He was a practical man who approached his diabetes management the way he had approached his entire career, methodically, systematically, without drama. He had been managing type 2 diabetes for 8 years. He had a glucose monitor, and he used it correctly. He tracked patterns. He made adjustments. He was, in his own words, pretty good at this by now. When he came to see me, he had a specific question that he had been unable to answer through his own tracking. He had identified that certain meals produced spikes he could not explain. Not post-dinner spikes, not morning spikes, but consistent afternoon spikes on specific days that he had eventually traced to his lunch. Specifically, to the pasta salad he brought from home, because it was easy to prepare in bulk, kept well in the refrigerator, and felt like a sensible vegetable-rich meal. He said, "I know pasta has carbs, but I put a lot of vegetables in it. I thought they would balance it out." This is one of the most common misunderstandings I encounter in clinical practice, and it is not in any way a failure of intelligence or attention. It is a direct consequence of the way we talk about food. We say add vegetables to balance a meal, and this is true in many contexts. Vegetables add fiber that slows digestion. Vegetables add volume that promotes satiety. But there is a limit to what vegetables can do when the primary ingredient in a meal is refined starch in a substantial quantity. I told Vincent, "Imagine you have a very powerful fire. Now sprinkle some water on it. The water is real. The fire is still real. The water does not put the fire out. The pasta in pasta salad is a very powerful fire. Metabolically speaking, the vegetables are real and valuable, but they cannot neutralize a starch load of that magnitude." He nodded slowly. Then he said, "So it's not the salad, it's what the salad is mostly made of. Exactly. That is number 2. Number 2 is pasta salad. And Vincent's insight, it's not the salad, it's what the salad is mostly made of, is the clearest possible summary of the problem. Pasta is made from refined wheat flour. Refined wheat flour is wheat that has had the bran and germ removed during processing, the fiber-rich outer layers that would otherwise slow starch digestion. What remains after processing is almost entirely starch, starch that digestive enzymes encounter with minimal obstruction. Within minutes of eating pasta, those enzymes begin cutting starch chains apart. Glucose floods the bloodstream. The larger the serving, the larger the flood. Now, pasta salad is specifically problematic beyond just being pasta, for a reason that matters enormously once you understand it. Pasta salad is almost always pasta dominant. Look at the actual contents of a typical pasta salad bowl. Rotini or penne pasta forms the base, perhaps 60 to 80% of the total volume by weight. Cherry tomatoes, olives, bell pepper slices, maybe some cubed cheese appear as additions. They are genuinely present, genuinely nutritious, but they function as flavor elements in a pasta dish rather than as the primary nutritional content of a balanced meal. When you eat pasta salad, you are eating primarily pasta. The vegetables are real, but they are accompaniments, and the starch in that pasta, once digestion begins, produces a glucose response that is functionally indistinguishable from eating the equivalent weight in white bread. Now, you might be thinking, what about whole wheat pasta? Is that meaningfully better? The honest answer is, somewhat, but not enough to change the picture significantly when the portion size is what pasta salad typically involves. Whole wheat pasta retains more fiber from the original grain, and that fiber does provide a modest buffer. Digestion is slightly slower, the glucose curve is slightly flatter. But for someone with insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, the difference between refined pasta and whole wheat pasta, at the quantities that pasta salad involves, is like choosing between running uphill and running uphill slightly more slowly. The destination is the same. Some pasta salad recipes add further problems. Sweet roasted red peppers, bottled Italian dressing that contains added corn syrup, sun-dried tomatoes packed in sweetened oil. These layer additional glucose on top of an already substantial starch load. The combined effect is a consistent, predictable, often significant blood sugar spike in people who brought their lunch from home, specifically because they wanted to be in control of what they were eating. The fix for pasta salad is not a smaller serving of the same dish. The fix is rethinking the foundation. Use cauliflower florets or zucchini noodles as the base rather than pasta. Or if you want genuine pasta, use a very small amount, a quarter cup, as an accent ingredient in a bowl that is primarily non-starchy vegetables, olive oil, olives, feta cheese, cherry tomatoes, and protein. That bowl has the flavor profile of pasta salad without the starch load that drives the spike. That is number 2. And here it is, number 1. The food that has been on American family tables for generations. The dish that appears at every summer gathering, every church potluck, every 4th of July barbecue. The one whose name contains the word that most doctors tell you to eat more of. The one that, in glycemic index studies, produces a blood sugar response comparable to, and in some research exceeding white bread, potato salad. Every single time I say this in a clinical setting, I get the same reaction. Genuine disbelief. How? It is cold. It does not taste sweet. It is made from a vegetable. How can potato salad possibly be the most problematic food on this list? Here is the precise answer, and it comes down to 3 specific facts about potatoes that, taken together, create the most significant starch delivery system on this entire list. Fact 1. Potatoes are among the most starch-dense vegetables that exist anywhere in the food supply. A single medium potato contains approximately 37 grams of starch. To understand what that number means in practical terms, 37 grams of starch is comparable to 2.5 slices of white bread. Not 2.5 slices of something indulgent white bread, the food that most people managing blood sugar already know to limit carefully. That is the starch sitting inside one medium potato before anything is done with it. Fact 2. Boiling, the cooking method used to prepare potato salad, makes that starch maximally accessible to digestion. When potatoes are boiled, heat and water work together to break down the cellular structure inside the potato. The starch granules swell and soften. The physical barriers that would otherwise require digestive effort to penetrate are dissolved by the cooking process. What arrives at your digestive enzymes is essentially pre-processed starch that the digestive system barely has to work to break apart. This is why boiled potatoes consistently score among the highest glycemic index values ever recorded for any commonly eaten food, often surpassing white bread, and in some studies approaching or exceeding certain candy bars. Fact 3. Potato salad is made with a lot of potatoes, served in generous portions, at social occasions where second helpings are both available and expected. A typical home recipe calls for several large potatoes per batch. A typical serving at a family gathering is not a small restrained portion. It is a scoop, sometimes two, placed on the plate alongside other foods. The total starch arriving in the digestive system from a normal potato salad, serving at a summer cookout, is very large. Now add the dressing. Traditional potato salad is dressed primarily with mayonnaise, which is mostly fat and does not directly raise blood sugar. But most traditional recipes also include sweet pickle relish, which contains significant added sugar, and some include a direct spoonful of sugar, honey, or sweet mustard to round out the flavor. So on top of an already very large starch load, there is additional glucose from the dressing ingredients. There is one partial nuance worth mentioning honestly. When cooked potatoes are cooled, some of the starch undergoes a physical transformation and becomes what researchers call resistant starch. Starch that digestive enzymes cannot break down as easily, because the starch molecules rearrange into a more compact structure during cooling. Cold potato salad does digest slightly more slowly than freshly boiled hot potatoes. This is real, and it means cold potato salad is marginally less problematic than hot mashed potatoes or baked potatoes served immediately. Marginally. The resistant starch provides a modest buffer. It does not change the fundamental picture. The starch load from potato salad is still very high. The glucose response is still very significant, and for someone carefully managing blood sugar, the difference is not large enough to make potato salad a safe choice in the portions that are typical at any gathering. That is number 1, potato salad. Not because of exotic hidden ingredients, not because of complicated chemistry, because it is built from one of the most starch-dense vegetables available, prepared using the cooking method that makes that starch maximally fast to digest, served generously, and perceived by essentially everyone as a harmless traditional comfort food. The gap between how it is seen and how it behaves inside the body is exactly what makes it the most important one to understand. Before the conclusion, I want to come back to Carol. Carol, the retired kindergarten teacher from Baton Rouge. The woman with the food diary in one hand and the glucose log in the other, trying to reconcile them for 6 months. After our conversation about pasta and starch, she made one change. She kept making her Sunday batch of lunch salad, but she replaced the rotini with a base of chopped romaine, arugula, and cucumber. She kept the cherry tomatoes, the olives, the Italian dressing, but she chose a version with no added sugar and used it in a measured amount. She added 2 hard-boiled eggs and a handful of walnuts. She called it her Italian-inspired salad rather than pasta salad, because that is what it had become. At her next appointment, she brought her glucose log and pointed to the difference. The same lunch window that had previously shown spikes into the 160s was now showing readings consistently in the 90s and low 100s. Same meal philosophy, same satisfaction, same convenience of making it in bulk on Sunday, different foundation. She said something I have used in teaching settings since. I didn't need to eat differently. I needed to understand what I was actually eating. Think back to the confusion at the beginning of this video. The monitor reading that made no sense after the salad you were certain was safe. The low-grade background frustration of doing everything right and still not getting the results the effort should produce. Here is what you know now. You know that starch, the same glucose chains found in white bread and white rice, is present in concentrated form in pasta, potatoes and croutons, regardless of what the dish surrounding them is called. You know that boiling makes starch maximally accessible to digestion. which is why potato salad produces a blood sugar response that rivals or exceeds white bread. You know that fruit sugar in large quantities overwhelms the liver's processing capacity in ways that worsen insulin resistance over time. You know that traditional coleslaw dressing transforms one of the most blood sugar-friendly vegetables into a substantial sugar delivery system. And you know that the vegetables in pasta salad, while genuinely nutritious, cannot neutralize a starch load of the magnitude that pasta as a primary ingredient produces. You also know the solutions: a salad base of non-starchy vegetables, romaine, arugula, cucumber, bell pepper, zucchini, broccoli florets, that genuinely digests slowly and keeps blood sugar stable, protein from eggs, fish, chicken or legumes that buffers the glucose response of any carbohydrates present, healthy fat from avocado, olives, nuts and olive oil that slows digestion and promotes genuine satiety, dressing made from olive oil and vinegar, with the ingredient label checked specifically for added sugar. Carol said, "I didn't need to eat differently. I needed to understand what I was actually eating." That is the whole message. The confusion was never a personal failure. The information was simply not there, and now it is. The monitor reading that frustrated you this week can be different next week, not by restricting more, not by eating less, but by understanding the mechanism and choosing accordingly. One salad rebuilt from a better foundation. That is where it starts. Take good care of yourself. You have earned it. And hey, if you made it all the way here, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Hit the like button to let me know this was worth your time. And leave a comment below. Tell me what country you're watching from. Seriously, I read every single one, and it means a lot to see how far this community reaches. You know what the problem is with diabetes and high blood sugar? Most people find out way too late, and by the time they do, they have no idea where to even start. That's why I decided to create a free guide. It's called The Glucose Paradox, and inside, you'll find everything you wish you'd known sooner. I'll explain how blood sugar actually works, and why your body sometimes reacts the exact opposite way you'd expect. That's why it's called a paradox. I've also included concrete habits you can start changing right now, even if you know zero about nutrition or medicine. It's free. You can download it in a second. And it might be the single most useful thing you do for your health today. Just click the link in the description to head to the site, drop your email, and get the guide sent straight to you. Don't put this off.